What's going on, guys? Zers here. And I am still working on my three-part video series on what it means to be a real man, what it means to be a real woman. Before I start editing the third part, I was gonna try to see if I can get two more interviews from two different people, and I was trying to remake the second part too. So that is why it's taken a while conducting all the interviews and trying to figure out how I'm gonna edit it. So I just put it in the back of my mind and worked on other stuff. And so in today's video, I got the idea to make this video when I saw a post. I forgot where, but it was someone talking about toxic masculinity. And then I saw Nita Sarkeesian said some bullshit about toxic masculinity. Excuse me. And then I watched the video Mr. Repsion did for TJ the Amazing Atheist. And I saw a comment on there, and some guy was like, well, even when Mr. Repsion's right, he still sounds like a fucking idiot. So I was like, well, you know what? I'm gonna take a shot at talking about toxic masculinity since I've already intended on talking about manhood and what it means to be a man anyway. May as well add this along too and talk about toxic masculinity. In this video, I don't think I'm going to extensively talk about it. I think what I'm going to do best is pretty much explain it and tell you guys my thoughts on it. So yeah, with that being said, let's get this going on. So, like every sensible person with the ability known as common sense predicted, another mass shooting or school shooting had occurred. Now, I don't have all the details for this school shooting, but I could find it. It's just not entirely relevant to today's video, so I'm not going to talk about that. But Anita Sarkeesian on her Twitter page, Feminist Frequency, tweeted out two tweets. The first tweet was, "We need to seriously address connections between violence, sexism, and the toxic ideas of manhood before boys and men commit more mass shootings." The second tweet she had almost an hour later was, "Not a coincidence, it's always men and boys committing mass shootings. The pattern is connected to ideas of toxic masculinity in our culture." Now, that is technically not literally true. I think she's right. Most mass shootings do happen or are caused by men and boys. And the answer is quite simple, really. Yeah, I know this is going to sound really funny, and some people might even complain of how sexist it is, but this is just point of fact. The truth of the matter is, men do and women complain, Men are more active, women are more passive. So when men get really angry and frustrated, men are more likely to act or to do something, while women, on the other hand, are more likely to either internalize it or to cut themselves or sometimes to attempt suicide, or they'll find some other passive way to cope with it. Women are not very active creatures, women aren't even fucking active in a lot of their relationships. A lot of women are actually very passive aggressive. So that's what it is. Men do, women are passive. So again, men do, women complain. That's kind of how it works. So that's really why it is the way it is. It's just that women are not very active creatures when it comes to dealing with their problems and solving their problems or acting out. It's just point of fact. So let's talk about toxic masculinity then. So I typed in toxic masculinity into Google, and this is the first result I got. It's this website called geekfeminism.wikia.com. So let's talk about this bit right here. Toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity is one of the ways in which patriarchy is harmful to men. It is the socially constructed attitudes that describe the masculine gender role as violent, unemotional, sexually aggressive, and so forth. A well-known masculinity movement that is not mostly anti-feminist has yet to appear. Examples: men are just like that. The idea that a real man constantly thinks about sex. Emasculation. The idea that there is an infinite range of political attitudes a real man can hold. The idea that real men should be prepared to be violent even when it is not called for. For example, a common response to women's tales of experiencing street harassment is for a man who's listening to say, "If I was there, I would have punched the harasser." This is problematic. You have got to be fucking kidding. I'm sorry. You just can't win. Goodness. My word. It's not enough. Goodness, they want, fuck. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness, you just cannot win with these people. My word. Let's keep reading. The expectation that real men are strong and that showing emotion is incompatible with being strong. Anger is either framed as the exception to the rule or not as an emotion. Relatedly, the idea that a real man cannot be a victim of abuse or that talking about it is shameful. Though not reinforced much in fictional media, in real life it is widely expected that a man should abandon his pregnant girlfriend and is incapable or unwilling to take responsibility. Well, that last one is some god-awful bullshit, but alright, well, let's jump back to my beautiful face. I'm a man, and I'm actually a very sensitive person, truth be told. Or I was very sensitive when I was younger. I was a very sensitive little kid back in the day, and I used to cry all of the time. Like, I was constantly crying all the time. And the reason why I cried was because I always thought it was better to show people how I felt instead of acting like what they said didn't bother me. That's what I thought. I thought, if I showed you that something bothered me, that people would stop doing it. Except that only works when you have a vagina. When you have a penis and you cry and you show your discomfort, nobody fucking cares. And that is a hard lesson that it took me, I learned when I was a little kid, is that nobody cares. I used to get told, I actually used to get in trouble for crying. That was the thing. Because it wasn't even just that nobody cared. I got made fun of because I cried in the middle of class. When I got home, my mom and my dad would yell at me for crying. And I remember one of the dumbest things I always thought when I was a little kid. My mom would always say, man, like, stop crying before I give you a reason to cry. Or, like, boys don't cry. And to me, I just kind of rationalized it in my mind as, well, I mean, I'm a boy and I'm crying, so clearly that's not true. Apparently boys can cry because I'm crying, so that, I mean, and then she would say, I'm going to give you a reason to cry, and then I'd always be like, but I'm already crying, so why would you give me a reason to cry? I already have a reason. Why would you do such a thing and give me more of a reason to shed these tears, So when I was younger, I just kind of rationalized in my mind, it's just clearly, well, that's not the fucking case. What I learned, though, throughout life, throughout those experiences, though, is time and place. I don't think it is a fantastic idea to specifically tell boys that they don't cry, because logically speaking, that's not fucking true, because, well, they can cry, so the statement factually is incorrect. But I think what you should teach boys, and I think you should just teach people this in general, is time and place. So this is going to all come back in a second, so just bear with me here. Because I think this is a huge chunk of what these feminists and social justice warriors are talking about. So, back to what I was saying. So, I think it's better to tell people, because this is what I learned when I was younger, is that, there are some situations, and actually not even some, just all situations in general, where crying is not going to solve your problem. Crying has never solved the problem that I had. Dealing with the problem and facing it down, on the other hand, has. And so I learned that it's okay to cry. There's no shame in crying, but it depends on what you're doing and where you are. Because if you have a job to do, or if you're trying to do something or obtain something, and you stop and you cry and you stop everything that's going on, well, then you're gonna not only annoy people, but your goal's not going to be obtained. So I guess the phrase should never be "boys don't cry." It's that boys don't cry all the time, or just people. You just don't cry and stop everything that's going on. For example, if you're playing a baseball game, right, and you swing and you miss, or you strike out and you sit there and start crying, you're gonna be like, dude, stop crying. And crying's not gonna make you any better. You can cry as much as you want. Too bad you're not gonna hit that ball. Practicing, before the game, or after the game, or with your friends is what's gonna make you better. So, crying doesn't solve your problems, and I think that's why people tell men and boys not to cry, because primarily what what men do is we try to fix shit. We try to solve problems that are going on with us. But at the same time, if something emotional is happening, or if we have a problem emotionally, I think we have to teach people in general to fucking care. Because here's the thing, when it comes to emotional problems that men have, nobody fucking cares. If men have problems, nobody cares. Nobody does anything to make it better or to fix it. And I think that's a huge problem as to why we even have this idea of toxic masculinity. So let me just first say, toxic masculinity is complete and utter fucking bullshit. What it all stems down to is that nobody cares about the problems men go through. Okay, nobody actively tries to fix it. Now, I've been lucky enough to have some friends of mine who did care, and my other friends, I cared about their problems too. So I was lucky enough to have friends around me that could come to me and talk to me, and that I could go to and talk to. Recently in my life, I've been kind of separated from people like that, and I'll make a whole video talking about my experiences with that in the future. But just when I was younger, seriously back in high school, I did gain a friend group of men who could talk about their problems, and could be emotional. And I remember once, and people that I could cry around, and it really kind of all just stems down to nobody really cares, and nobody actively tries to help men out. And that's where a huge chunk of all of these problems stem from. And also comes from lack of fathers in the house teaching men what it means to be a man. So to kind of put it all together, toxic masculinity, it's not really toxic masculinity. It's not really teaching boys violence. It's that boys and men will revert to violence because they've never been taught how to deal with these feelings. They've never had someone invest in them because they don't have fathers, they don't have friends, they don't have people they can talk to, or they'll have a bunch of other men who don't know what it means to be a man. So what they see on media, what they see in mass media, what they see in movies is what their idea of masculinity is, and it's usually fucked up, and that's what they go on with. But what it really stems, what the major problem is, and always has been, is that, in general, people don't fucking care when men have problems. We can look at the MRA movement right fucking now, and half the time, if you look at the mainstream media or you look at white knights, they'll fucking bitch and complain and say MRAs are just a bunch of misogynistic guys who are just complaining you need to suck it up. So let that be the fucking reason why we even have this discussion on toxic masculinity. Because when men talk about their problems, people don't really care. Even sometimes, unfortunately, even when men try to talk their problems, to women, like if they intend on having sex with that woman, do not fucking talk to her about your problems unless you guys are like in a relationship, because you would just look like one of the most unattractive sons of bitches ever. And that's a huge fucking problem, because women are not super attracted to emotional men. Like, as much as they like to say they are, it's just not fucking true. And men are going to adapt to what works when trying to date women. And if women friend zone emotional guys all the fucking time, well then men are not going to be as open with women because they know it's not gonna fucking end well, because we're not stupid, contrary to popular belief. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I'll say about toxic masculinity today. I'll probably talk about it a little more extensively in its own, probably maybe 15-20 minute video. But yeah, with that being said, I certainly hope you guys got something out of this video. Hopefully I've given some ladies, some feminists, some social justice warriors something to think about when it comes to toxic masculinity. And yeah, it's about that time. So guys, as always, if you like this video, please, go ahead and click that like button. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. And as always, have a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.